The title sounds a bit weird, but I think that this story fits here perfectly. So a bit of background, my mom and I, M/17, live alone and get along really well. I honestly can't remember the last time we fought. We split chores and we do things as soon as they need to be done. However, there is something, a tiny little thing, that really messed with me. When my mom takes out the trash, she doesn't put a new garbage bag in the bin. It really messes up my day sometimes, because I cook a lot and our bin is rather tiny. Furthermore, she takes out the trash often since she wakes up before me. So last Friday I got ready to stay with my father for the weekend when my mom called me and said that she wanted to make some cheesecake and to please take the trash out. At that moment it just clicked. Yesterday evening my mother told me that she now understands why I'm so annoyed when she doesn't put a new garbage bag in the trash can. It just so happened that right after she got home, she started to bake. After she was done, she took all the leftover things and threw them in the trash. All the slimy eggshells, the quark, curd cheese, and some flour and milk that missed the bowl landed right in the nice clean shiny plastic shell of the bin. She said that she spent at least half an hour cleaning our bin and said that she, from now on forward, will always put a new bin bag in the bin. Sweet victory. Edit, thank you all for your very nice comments. I read every single one of them even though I don't answer all of them. So sorry if this doesn't fit here, but this funny encounter happened a few months back. So I work as a prep cook at a chain breakfast place that isn't super big. The type that maybe has a handful of locations every few states. My stepdad is in the military and lives an hour away from me, so hadn't been able to come by and visit me at work yet. His latest assignment took him several states away for 12 months, so on his drive out of town he wanted to stop by my work and have lunch with me. So he types the restaurant into his GPS. Makes the drive. Takes his seat. Then asks the server to let me know he is here. So here's the thing. I don't have a common name. Think something along the lines of Iris. I'm 23 and Caucasian. So when he sits down, asks for Iris, and starts eating his food only to have an Asian woman in her 30s show up, he was a bit surprised. I live in a small town next to a big city. He went to the big city location. I've never met anyone else with my name, but apparently my name twin not only works for the same company, but also the exact same position. I haven't met her yet, but I hear she is very nice. Since he had already ordered food he finished eating then drove to my location. He kindly ordered again and just took his food to go so he'd have a snack on the road. Not a super dramatic story, but we both had a good laugh over it. With the pandemic he hasn't been able to come home, but he is staying safe. Now that some of the restrictions are lifting my brother is planning on driving to stay with him so he isn't alone. He hopes to come home before my daughter is born in September. I got a job at a certain unionized grocery chain recently, the one that's a half-hour drive from my home compared to the one that's 2 blocks away, but that's not important. I understand it's stressful right now, but that's no reason to take it out on a store employee. It might not even have been stress. Today, I had a customer come in with his wife and child, and had a reasonable amount of food on the conveyor belt. Asked him how his day was and all that, and he's acting pretty jovial, amazingly enough. Now, we instituted a limit on pork products recently, something about factories shutting down, and he's got 3 while our limit is 2. They're all sausages, and I tell him we have a limit on pork products. It's only 2 per household right now and he's perfectly content and jokes, so, do the sausages count? So I respond, in a pretty matter-of-fact tone, because I just kind of gloss over humor and the like after a while and don't have time to formulate sentences completely correctly, that yes, the sausages count because they're pork. Now, I understand that could be seen as me insulting his intelligence or something, but it was really just me saying yeah it counts, sorry about that. He just goes off the rails. His entire demeanor changes, and he just goes, you know what? Leave the sausages. Just leave everything. He starts hurling expletives at me, not yelling them, surprisingly, and just straight up leaves without any of the stuff he was going to pay for. He just leaves his stuff for my coworkers and I to clean up. He didn't yell or throw stuff around or break anything, but it was still an incredibly bad response to someone accidentally sassing you. I feel bad for the wife and kid. They probably have to deal with him being an embarrassment a lot. I work at a very large franchise fast food restaurant, and while most customers have no problem with their order, we get the occasional one that is baffled by the simplest of things. Take this one woman who wanted a hamburger. What she actually ordered was a cheeseburger, no cheese. I don't know how things are at other burger selling joints, But literally the only difference between a cheeseburger and a hamburger where I work is the cheese. Otherwise they are identical, they have exactly the same ingredients. So I put through a hamburger. If I put through a cheeseburger no cheese, the kitchen would think I've lost it, and it doesn't, or shouldn't, make any difference to the customer. So her hamburger comes out, in a wrapper that says hamburger. She takes it, pauses, and then turns back to me. Sorry, but I ordered a cheeseburger no cheese. Yes, sorry, a cheeseburger with no cheese is exactly the same as a hamburger, so I just put through a hamburger. I ordered a cheeseburger though and the wrapper says hamburger. It's exactly the same though. The only difference between a cheeseburger and a hamburger is the cheese. But this is not what I ordered. You wanted a cheeseburger, correct? Yes. But without the cheese, correct? Yes. Me, trying to be as polite as possible, then that's what this is. A cheeseburger without the cheese is a hamburger. There is literally no difference. But I didn't order a hamburger, I ordered a cheeseburger no cheese. Now I'm smiling through gritted teeth and have resigned myself to her stupidity. 1 second and I'll just go change that for you. I literally went into the kitchen and got them to put the hamburger into a wrapper that said cheeseburger and whack a label on that said no cheese. Thank you very much, dear. And she took the hamburger disguised as a cheeseburger no cheese and went on her merry way. Now anytime a customer wants a cheeseburger no cheese, we have to explain to them why the label says something else. Most of them get it but give us really weird looks, as if we're stupid, or maybe they think we think they're stupid. I did the laundry and for fun put on a sweater that belongs to my brother. I was very happy that my brother's sweater fit me, because I always struggled to lose weight and I lost some during quarantine. I went to my brother's room to tell him about it. He was on his computer writing something and didn't think anything of it. So I pointed at the sweater and said, "Look, your sweater fits me, I'm not that fat. Only for my fat ass I need size 46, and then I hit my ass." What I didn't realize was that my brother was not only writing something on his computer, but was also in Zoom call with his whole class and my former physics teacher. Of course I was shocked and then I said in panic, "I'm not going back to that crappy school soon anyway," and then I ran out of the room and hid shamefully in my bathroom. My brother has been asked about it over and over again and he is very embarrassed about it. Fortunately I will soon no longer go to this school, as I only have to appear for the exams. Sorry for my crappy English. TLDR, I talked about my ass, while my brother had a Zoom call with his class and my former physics teacher. I used to work at a major college test preparation company, helping people get ready for college and graduate school entrance exams. We provide in-person classes, so we have centers in various locations across the city. My particular center only provided classes to prepare for graduate programs, LSAT for law schools, MCAT for med schools, etc., because we were strategically located near several universities in the area. One day a late 30s Southeast Asian lady, maybe Chinese or Korean, and her daughter, probably 10 or so, came into the center. Now I am also Asian, Indian, but I was raised here so I have no accent. However, probably because I am bilingual, I have always been very good with languages, including being able to interpret heavily thick accents of all kinds. This was particularly useful in college, and I came to the rescue of classmates more than once. Unfortunately, that day my skills with accents was tested beyond its limits. Despite her very thick accent I could tell she wanted information about testing and locations of classes. However, when she asked if we held classes at a particular location, I simply could not understand what she was saying. "Lady, you hold class at Wadajaja?" Me, excuse me? Lady, Wadajaja. Me, where? Lady, Wadajaja. Me, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're saying. Lady, Wada Jaju. Visibly irritated, she said it much louder and slower this time. "Why do people think that speaking louder is the solution, instead of speaking more clearly?" There were several moments of silence. I realized that asking her to repeat herself again would just make her explode, and I needed a moment to try and decipher what she said. At a complete loss, I looked down at the daughter who was standing with an exasperated look on her face. She just sighed and said, in a completely perfect, unaccented English, "Walter Johnson," referring to a local high school. Me, "Oh, Walter Johnson." The lady looked angry, but said nothing. Me, "I'm sorry. We only do graduate school test prep classes here. You'll need to contact the high school division. We have a customer who regularly comes in to pick up meds, once every week typically, and he tends to rant about the government and his doctors and whoever else being incompetent. Today he came in and joked that he was going to kill our pharmacist, but he had decided to let her live a little longer. After he left, I asked my pharmacist why she tolerates that, and she said, "Yeah, it makes me uncomfortable, but I know he is just joking, that's just how he is." I pointed out that if he had spoken to a tech like that, she wouldn't have liked it and would have been concerned. For some reason he came in like an hour later solely to have me ring him up for a drink, and he said he was going to wait to talk to our pharmacist. She finally has a moment to step over to speak with him, and he says, "Actually, I'm not going to kill you, I'm going to kill my doctor." And then goes on a rant about how he is smarter than his stupid doctor. Pharmacist says that those jokes aren't funny or appropriate, and he goes into a tangent about how it is funny. You can't tell me what is and isn't okay to say. I'm the customer, I have been coming here for decades. You can't tell the customer what is and isn't appropriate or funny. I'm not just going to speak with your manager, I'm going to make sure that this pharmacy has someone new. He proceeded to walk up to front store and tell the cashier there that the stupid little girl back there can take a joke, and that the only time our pharmacy was good was when a man worked back there. Update: our store manager, pharmacists, and DL all spoke, and the DL said that it would be unfair to ban him without giving him the chance to prove that he'll behave himself. So when he comes in angry next time and pulls a gun, I'll make sure and post the link to the news article. Frown. I work at a popular corner shop franchise in England. There's an older lady that lives just 3 or 4 doors down from the shop. I see her most days. She comes in usually in a dressing gown or wrapped up warm. Over the last 6 months or so, I've learned a few things. She had colon cancer and had recently had surgery to have it removed. She hadn't worked in a long time due to it, and she had no family left in the area. Her husband had passed some years ago. All she had was her 3 cats who we often see hanging around. Chester, Vader and Huey are their names. I knew she wasn't well, and I've done a few small things to help her out. Taking things to her doorstep and the like. She had a fall recently. The cancer was back. She really wasn't well. One time, she called the shop to ask me to bring her things, but she had no way to arrange payment, so I bought it for her myself. It wasn't anything important, wine and cigarettes. Maybe I was helping her kill herself. Apparently, she had a fall at home and the fire brigade came to help out. They used their clout to arrange better care and help for her. I thought maybe things were getting better. Sometimes, I wondered if I should knock on her door, see if there's anything I could get her, but with the quarantine, I wanted to be careful. I found out today that she passed away 3 days ago. It's weird. I didn't really know her, she was a customer, a minor acquaintance. But I saw her most days. I wish I could have done more to help, maybe make her last days a bit easier, a bit more happy. It's a strange sort of sadness, watching a person just sort of peter out. I'll miss you, Lynn. P.S. Since most people will be curious, the cats are being fed by neighbors at the minute, and there's people trying to get them rehomed. I'm an immigration security inspector. Since I'm a government employee, I probably shouldn't say where I'm from. High-level police here are able to run the manifests of every incoming international flight. It doesn't stop all crime, but it regularly occurs that the national police make immigration security, us, or our airport police aware of someone who's wanted, sometimes here, sometimes internationally. Sometimes grabbing them as they come off the plane doesn't work so ideally, on occasion they'll slip past. 96% of people known to be wanted that arrive internationally will be detained between the time they exit the aircraft and get through immigration. Regardless, as an international arrival or departure, you're constantly being watched. Often in ways you don't know. We have police watching CCTV, there's uniformed police, plainclothes police, dogs, uniformed inspectors, undercover behavioral analysis experts/profilers, and plainclothes inspectors. In this particular case, none of that mattered because the big boy cops didn't have any flags on his fake name. One of my favorite things to do is walk up and down the lines, make casual conversation, check the occasional passport. If I find someone to be suspicious, I pull them back into inspection. It's not that big of a deal, most will be clean but get to skip the lines, but I do catch a lot of sketchy shoot like this. I was talking to this one guy. Big dude, middle-aged, local citizen. His papers look fine, but his answers to questions seemed very rehearsed and prepared. He was fidgety, had really intense eye contact, so I figured something was up. I asked him to step out of line to come with me, and he bolted in the direction of the restroom. A couple plainclothes guys and I grab him, sit him down, and detain him awaiting police. Remember, we aren't cops, we're glorified security guards. Cops come, they drag him kicking and screaming back into the inspection area. Turns out his papers were fakes. He made one critical mistake when it comes to fake IDs. That mistake was he had his real ID with him as well. Some cocaine too, but that's relatively minor in comparison to this guy's problems. Turns out he was wanted for grooming, abduction/kidnapping, and forcible rape of a 11Y/O girl. He was identified by DNA registry because he had prior sex offense charges, which he also breached conditions of his probation by leaving the country. His checked luggage was also pulled because he had a disguised firearm in it. He was transferred to the airport police station and then after a telecourt hearing was taken into custody by the prison service. Is this post okay here? I just had a wholesome I don't work here moment the other day. I was at the Midwest Say Big Money hardware/lumber store to pick up some needed items and a lady comes up to me to ask me where she could find tarps and then she realized that my blue shirt was not quite the same one for the store and she apologized right away. I told her no problem and I can show you where the tarps are at and took her there and showed her what choices she had, light duty, medium duty, heavy duty and sizes. I went on shopping and later I see her wandering and ask her if she needs help. Yes, she was looking for automotive oil. I showed her where she could find it, that's it, just a nice wholesome middle. I could work there since I know where everything is so she could have done worse. So this story happened when I was about 14, and just started high school, since where I live, we usually start at that age. This Kevin was introduced to me by F, for friend, who also went to the same school as me. She warned me that Kevin had anger issues and often acted entitled. Should have seen it coming. Kevin knew I had a twin, since we had both been introduced to him by F. Also, an important info about us. We come from another country, so we usually prefer to speak our native language in public and at home. Okay, so we were all riding the bus to school and me and T, for twin, were seated together and were talking about something in our native language. Suddenly, I noticed Kevin in the seat next to us, staring with a look that kept me confused. Kevin, why are you two speaking Chinese? You are definitely not Asian. I got confused, and kinda shocked that he taught an European language could be Asian, but he must have not known better since he never left the country. It's not Chinese, and we can speak any language we want. Kevin, yes, but not in the bus, it is rude and stupid to speak like you are hiding something. Tell me what you said now. The person seated next to him was one of his old middle school friend from what F had told me. He was also as shocked as me, but kept his mouth shut. Me, we were just discussing some school work, no need to be rude, I baffled, not too sure about how I should respond. Kevin, but why in Asian? He said it like we did a crime. At this point people were noticing the rude tone of Kevin, but no one cared, since we were getting close to school and it wasn't their business. Kevin kept talking, louder, you don't have the right to speak another language like that here, in this country. I believe it is wrong. Kevin, just leave us alone. We didn't do anything. My twin got super annoyed, since he hadn't slept much and didn't have much nerves left to fight. Kevin finally settled this by saying he wouldn't hang out with us ever, since we were going to influence our bad habits to him. But he can't even speak any other language? I know this is dumb, just ignore it, I am horrible in writing stories. This is a story about my younger cousin, whom I'll call Ellie, F, 15 at the time, for the sake of privacy. My extended family and I went to McDonald's at our nearest mall. McDonald's has this phone app where you can use coupons to get extra fries or save a little money. One of the rules for the app is that you can only use one coupon per phone. Ellie knew this, and prepared to make two separate transactions. She was trying to order food for her and her little sister, Anna, again not her real name. Anna gave Ellie her phone so that when Ellie ordered for her, she could use her coupon. Ellie walks up to the register with two phones in hand, hers and Anna's. And the minute Ellie walked up, the employee scowled. Ellie starts ordering for herself and scans her coupon from her own phone. She finishes her transaction and begins to start ordering for her sister. The employee immediately says no, only one coupon per person. And Ellie says yes, I'm ordering for someone else. The employee again, scowling, yelling no you have two phones, you can't do that. Ellie gestures to Anna saying I'm ordering for her. The employee says no, you can't use the coupons. This went on for quite a while and I could see Ellie and the employee arguing from a few meters away. And that she wasn't technically breaking any rules if she was ordering for 2 different people from 2 different phones with 2 different transactions. Ellie at this point was quite annoyed, and what she did next seemed to really anger the lady even more. She wasn't going to give up on the coupons, so she gestured to Anna, telling her to come over. She thrust the phone into Anna's hands and then said she's ordering. And then she repeated the order, saying she wants /_________________________ The lady was quite angry at this point, but she reluctantly let her use the coupon and went through with the order. My aunt was laughing a few yards away. She was curious to see the rating and reviews for that McDonald's, and when we checked it out, they had 2 stars. Reading some of the stories here reminded me of something that happened with me. Background: several years ago I was helping a couple of vendors at a local festival. The couple had a camper with a small collapsible gazebo that had oil on leather paintings and mandalas. A mandala is a Native American shield for protecting a home. At the time I was 5'9" with long dark hair that I kept in a ponytail, sometimes braided, medium to dark tan skin. The festival takes place during the summer, and I was usually dressed in a Western-style shirt with a bolo tie, dark denim jeans and knee-high moccasin boots. I was also wearing a Stetson-style hat. The couple had asked to keep an eye on things in the gazebo and had brought out a bar stool with a low back for me to sit on. Now for the fun. One day a lady with her husband and kids came to the camper and were looking things over, including everything where I was. As she was paying for the items her family wanted, she asked Mark, NRN, how much for the statue? Mark looked around a bit confused and asked, what statue? The lady said, the one sitting on that bar stool, and pointed at me. Her husband had come over and told Mark that whoever carved and painted this statue was really talented. Mark started laughing and asked me how much I thought I was worth. I turned my head as the husband jumped along with the 2 kids as the lady let out a little shriek. I don't know this, I haven't really thought about being sold. The family overcame the shock and we all had a good laugh. So today I decided it would be a good time to move some furniture around. The best thing for now would be switching the table and couch places since the child has learned to climb up onto the counter from the couch. We have a folding table since the house is small, and when we don't need it, it can be nicely folded and hid pretty much anywhere. So I start my cleaning starting with everything on the table. Then I needed to wipe it down, so of course I go get a wet cloth to get the dust off of it. After all the dust is gone, I fold up both legs and the table folds in half. Part of the way through folding it I noticed there is a little latch to keep it folded. I lean down to get the latch out of the way as I am closing it. Finally it snaps closed and I feel a sharp pinch. My boob was inside the very edge of the table, enough to get skin pinched. There is now an inch-long red mark on my breast where it got caught inside it. It's been an hour since then and it still stings if I touch it. TL/doctor, caught my titty in a folding table. This happened when I was 13. My dad came home with one of his friends from work. For this story I'll call the friend Gary. I had just came home from school and found Gary sitting in the living room and it spooked me. He stood up and introduced himself, though I was so spooked to care beside him, looking me directly into my eyes as he talked. I was relieved getting away from that very awkward introduction and I left ASAP after he was done yapping. I went directly to my room and started my homework. I had a desk which I used to do schoolwork on. When sitting, the door to my room was directly behind me. So, a few minutes pasted and from the corner of my eye I saw something move on my computer screen. I looked and it was switched off, but I could see the reflection of my door in the hallway on my computer screen. Then I saw Gary just standing there staring at me. I prevented myself with a lot of effort not to turn my head and look. I just sat there looking at my computer at this strange man standing at my door for like a minute, but it seemed like years. Just when I was about to turn around and ask him what TF did he want, I heard my dad calling as he was approaching the living room. Gary then turned back and I'm sure he ran, cause in a split second when I turned my head to the hallway, he had vanished. I came down to the living room and was shocked to find Gary and Dad chatting. I was clearly confused, but I was more astonished by how Gary behaved as if nothing had happened. I asked him was he just upstairs outside my room, and he busted out laughing and brushed it off with some dumb comment like you might have seen a ghost. What annoyed me is Dad laughed along with him and I looked crazy. I left them and years later my dad confessed that Gary had told him he was at my door that day. And he apologized to me for not believing. So yeah, Gary, please let's not meet ever again. Background: last year I was hired in this small construction company. Like most of this kind of companies, there's only few women. 10 of my teammates were women. That includes me. My job is related designing and managing buildings. On my first week, our company owner, boss, visited us. The secretary and utility guy were not in the office at that time. They ran some errands. Our manager offered our boss coffee. To which he turned to me and said, "Manager, hey up, can you wash some mugs and prepare some coffee for us? That's what women do anyways." Well, that just ticked me off. First thing ran through my mind was I didn't finish uni just to make coffee. But also, I could have made them coffee if they just asked nicely without those degrading comments. So I did what nice employee do. I picked up some dirty mugs and the electric kettle. Smiled on the way out. Ran some water over the mugs. I didn't even make effort to scrape the stains whoever last used it. Boiled tap water. Tap water is not potable in my country. Prepared coffee and served it to them. I smiled as I watched them and discussed drink on used mugs and coffee made with tap water. My boss commented as he drank coffee, "This coffee is good, this is why women belong in the kitchen." I just smiled. I knew I had my revenge smile. Sorry for the bad English. A nursing supervisor friend of mine was working at our hospital. She told me this story. A patient died and was taken to the morgue in the basement. He was a recent code blue from the ER. The family arrives later that night and asks to see the patient in the morgue. Some people need closure. The nursing supervisor escorts the family to this locked and restricted area in the basement. It's close to midnight and the family wailing, overcome by grief. They are so upset he died and want to blame someone. They collectively grab the body partially wrapped in plastic. They said they want to throw him on the front lawn and call the press to expose the hospital for perceived wrongdoing. They start running down the hall, the body in tow. This basement is a literal maze of hallways containing laundry, kitchen facilities, medical supplies and even a loading dock for supplies to be delivered. There are many locked areas which make it a confusing place to negotiate. It was like the Keystone Cops or a Scooby-Doo scene, going in and outdoors, running up and down various hallways with the nursing supervisor in pursuit. The family were unable to find a way out. They finally gave up, and the patient was returned to the morgue. Throughout my teenage years I worked a weekend job that started at 7 a.m. One of the mornings that I overslept had really crappy weather. The wet snow had been accumulating and had turned to 4 to 6 of slush on the road, Michigan. Being the 16 to 17-year-old driver that I was, I thought going 5 under the speed limit was slow and careful. Very close to making it to work on time, I lost control. Small Honda with a hatchback hit an embankment and the vehicle rolled onto its roof. It didn't hit the embankment head-on and I was really surprised that it rolled. Nevertheless, it was a very serious accident. After speaking with my boss and the police, didn't receive a ticket, my nerves had calmed and I was ready to deal with my parents. I was really wanting the whole thing to be over with. Almost an hour later, I was sitting in the passenger seat of a bother vehicle when the EMT came running up. Out of breath and taking her job very seriously, she inquired about my health and if I was hurting anywhere. To which I replied very calmly that I was fine, I had no pain. She cut me off and promptly told me not to move, to let her do all the work and to pretend your neck and back are broken. I don't know why, but just as she pulled my legs to the side to turn me toward the open car door, I let out a painful yell. The EMT stopped dead with wide eyes and said, "What? What is it? Where's your pain?" I calmly looked at her and said, "Oh, I'm not really in pain. You told me to pretend my neck and back were broken." I don't remember exactly what she said under her breath, something that included "smart-ass teenager," but the long, quiet ride to the hospital with my head taped to that board and that lady sitting next to me was painstaking. Because I wasn't badly injured and my parents didn't kill me, like I thought they would, I can remember with great fondness my quick response and her reaction to my malicious compliance. God bless her for doing her job and all the EMTs who put up with teenagers like I was. I work at a small-town coffee shop that has managed to adapt and stay busy during COVID-19 by utilizing a window for walk-up service. A regular problematic customer, let's call him TJ, is a typical middle-aged man riddled with toxic masculinity. He often makes female employees and customers uncomfortable with his comments. Lately he's been around a lot, being typical TJ. Today he came to our window and ordered a coffee, cool, nothing out of the ordinary. A co-worker asked him if he would like to tip via our Square register. We normally don't verbally ask customers, but with the current pandemic we are not allowing customers to touch our iPad system. He proceeded to tell her to put 100, and reassured them he wanted to tip that much because he appreciates our hard work and effort and wants to chip in since our business has been a bit slower. Okay, I gave him that and almost have a change of heart about DJ. We both outwardly thank him and he goes on his way. I text my boss about this uncharacteristic interaction with TJ, and through their end of the register system she was able to look at the transaction. They noticed that not only was the credit card he used not in his name, but in his boss's name, on their company card. Typical TJ. What a D-bag. 2 days ago one of my friends called me and said that he is going on a business trip and he needs to leave his parrot somewhere for a couple of days, and he knew that I have some experience of taking care of birds, so I was the first person to come to his mind. Currently, I am working from home and because of that I have a lot of free time, and to be honest, I feel kind of lonely. So I actually got excited about it and accepted right away. He warned me about the bird and said this bird was rescued from an abusive owner and lived in a very bad environment for years, and because of that, it can make noises sometimes. This made me want to take care of the poor bird even more, and there is a couple of dog owners in the building and they bark all the time, the dogs not the owners, so everybody pretty much used to animal noises. He brought the bird yesterday morning and the bird was the cutest, shyest thing I ever saw. I put the bird's cage to the room I am working and opened its cage. In the first couple of hours, it didn't even leave the cage and didn't make any noise at all. But then I poured some seeds on my hand and it came to it. After that, it started to fly in the room and approach me more with time. I feel like everything was going fine until it became night. Now before I continue I have to mention that I barely know the people who live in my apartment and they don't know me much as well. Probably the only things they know are I am living all by myself and don't talk to people much. Now let's return to the bird. When I closed the light and went to my bed to sleep, the bird started to shout. But not in normal bird noises, it started to shout for help in human language. Help, help, don't touch me, some random crying noises, and insults. Lots of insults. This continued for hours and I was dying inside all the time. My neighbors were definitely thinking I am abusing someone in my house. I thought about going out and telling them it's the bird who is shouting, so there is nothing to worry about. But it was already late and people knew that I don't have a bird, so I thought I will be even more suspicious if done that. So I opened the lights and stayed with the bird whole night, and when it finally falls asleep toward the morning I went and slept as well. I just woke up knowing the bird is fine and I am doing good too. I guess I am just going to keep this to myself and let my neighbors think I am a weird guy who just killed someone. The thing is, nobody called the cops. I was afraid that they would, but then at least it would make it clear that there was nothing wrong in my house and I could talk loudly to the police that it's the bird guys, no need to worry, so other people would hear as well. But no, they silently judged me and now I am afraid to leave the house. DL, doctor, I agreed to take care of my friend's rescued parrot. Parrot shouted for help the whole night and now my neighbors thinking I just killed someone. First time posting. Currently a EMS dispatcher for a private ambulance company for 3 years now. We take some calls, however, they're usually seizures, psych, and falls. This one? Probably should have been psych, but unfortunately she wasn't the patient. This call happened in my first year, while I was pretty fresh and didn't understand the power of controlling a call. And #X200B. Me, okay, tell me exactly what happened. CLR, yeah, my mom fell in the other room. You know we have her locked in there right now, but yeah, she fell and I think she may have hit her head. Me, okay, are you with her now? CLR, well, you see, she has dementia, and we live in a new home, so she is locked in there. You see, we can't have her wandering because of the bears that are around here. Me, have you gone to check on her yet? CLR, no, I can't unlock her door because she will get out and the bears will get her. Me, can you please go check on the patient? CLR, yeah, I think she might have hit her head, it sounded like she hit the end table, that's what woke me up, but even our big dog, insert large dog brand, is afraid to go outside because there are bears here at this new house. Please send the ambulance, but make sure they get in and out quick because the bears will get them. Rinse and repeat for literally every one of the 10 questions involved with a fall. I was essentially working with a third-party caller as she flat out refused to unlock her mother from the room until the imps got there, let alone even go look at her. And #X200B. I kid you not, I heard way more about these bears than I ever got out of her regarding her fallen mother. While I may have wanted to bash my head into the desk repeatedly asking her the questions, now I can have a good belly laugh over it. From what I do remember though, Mom was transported alright, and no EMTs were mauled by the darn bears. I've been a lurker of this thread and figured I'd post a strange situation that happened to me a long time ago. I was probably no older than 5 and my family, myself, Mom, and Dad, We're at a theme park. I had already been there several times and knew what my favorite rides were. As soon as we got in, I ran ahead of them in a rush to get to the ride I wanted to go on first. I had reached the queue for the ride and hopped on the line. The next, basically, the main part, happened pretty quickly. I remember a random, middle-aged woman in line ahead of me talking to someone else, and I believe other children were around as well. All of a sudden, I'm just standing there, when I feel a hand go over my mouth. This woman is nonchalantly talking to this other person while her hand is literally covering my mouth for what felt like 30 seconds to a minute, though it was probably more like 20 seconds. I stood there, frozen, not really knowing what to do. Shortly after, my parents caught up and the woman released her hand from my face. I'm not sure if she released her hand a few seconds before they arrived, or at the same time. They scolded me for running ahead of them like that. I imagine the time difference between me getting on the line and them joining me had to be no more than 30 seconds or so. I don't want people to assume they were just being careless. However, my parents weren't aware of what just occurred, as I was initially afraid to say something. After the ride, I admitted to my parents what had happened. They became furious and asked me to describe her in hopes of finding her. In a busy park, of course, this goal was nearly impossible. They wished I had told them while we were still on the line, as she was right there. Additionally, I was facing away from her as she placed her hand over me, so I couldn't get a good look. It's possible that they reported her, but they didn't mention this part to me, presumably because they did this behind the scenes. I'm 23 now. To this day, I wonder, was this an accident? Why me? Did she mistake me for another, her own, child? Why the mouth? Was there malintent here? And if there was, why in broad daylight in front of a crowd of people? I sometimes wonder if I remembered the whole situation correctly, because memories can sometimes be choppy. This is as best as I can recall it. It never fails to creep me out when I think about it. Obligatory on mobile notice. First of all, this is probably not as interesting as other posts here, but I need to get this off my mind. Context: I work at a grocery store as a courtesy clerk that I am not going to name, for obvious reasons. For those who don't know what a courtesy clerk is, it's the person who bags for you. Anyway, as a courtesy clerk, I usually stand outside and sanitize the carts. My store has 2 separate entrances. This is no problem as this is a part of my job, but what really gets to me is that when customers will walk into the store through the exit even when I tell them that the entrance is just 10 meters away. Is it really that hard to walk that much further to keep yourself and others safe? Another thing that is quite annoying is when customers will ask if this basket/cart is clean, and when I say yes but the entrance is over there, they ignore me and walk into the exit. Some of them will even wave their hand at me as if to say shut up. Don't tell me to shut up if I am trying to point you in the correct direction to keep people safe. Like goddarn listen to the staff of the store as we are just trying to keep order in the store to keep everyone healthy. Deep breath. Thanks for reading. Not my story, but that of my friends from a while back. It's worth the read, I promise. My friend is a firefighter, and with it he is constantly responding to calls and has gone multiple shifts without breaks or rest. This can mean 2 days in a row with little to no sleep. This is true for a lot of firefighters. Well, one of the buddies in his group had responded to 2 cardiac arrest calls back to back. In the first one, they took the patient to the hospital and they were able to resuscitate him. In the second call the guy passed away. Now keep in mind, this buddy had been working constantly, and was absolutely tired. As he was leaving the hospital the family of guy number 2 came running in and asked him if he was alright. The buddy with a huge grin on his face goes, "Oh yeah. Everything's great, we managed to bring him back. He'll be better soon," and left. As he hopped in the truck with his police chief he realized he had mistook the 2 people. He told the chief about everything and the chief just turned up the radio and drove away. DL, Dr. Firefighter tells family of dead guy that the guy lived. I was in Washington, D.C. last year. It was winter and late at night. The gym I usually go to closed early on the weekends and I really wanted to work out, so I went to a 24-hour gym nearby. I do my workout and I'm feeling hungry afterwards, so I call an Uber. I'm waiting at the corner of the street across from a 7-Eleven. There are 2 men standing on the other side of the street but no cars anywhere. DC gets pretty abandoned at night. One of the guys is homeless and clearly has some mental issues. He did not really bother me, the other guy did. The guy is about as tall as I am, 6 feet, and wearing a gray baggy hoodie. He slowly walks across the street towards me, doesn't even wait for the intersection to light up. As he approached me, I saw a cop pull over a driver for what I can only assume was running a red light. The police car was maybe 30 to 50 feet from me, but it was on the other side of the intersection. I saw the guy eye the cop car. He kept one hand in his hoodie and I could tell he was holding something. He kept eyeing the cop car, pacing around me slowly. Didn't say a word to me, just stared and walked back and forth behind me. The hairs on the back of my neck were standing up. I was panicking, praying for my Uber to get here and praying the cop car wouldn't leave. I kept checking my phone and my Uber was only a few minutes away. I knew I couldn't make a run for it. I'd just worked out and I'm a chubby guy. If I approached the cop, I think the guy would have tried to stop me. Finally, I see my Uber, I wave him down, run to the opposite side of the street. I jump in the car and tell him to floor it. I look in the rearview mirror and I see the guy is walking away from the corner with one hand still in his sweater pocket. I called the police after. I got some clerical officer who wasn't interested in what happened unless he actually threatened me or pulled a gun, but I know what I saw. He was holding something in his pocket, and he just kept pacing behind me waiting for that cop car to leave. To this day, it still scares me thinking about what would have happened to me had my Uber been a few minutes later or that car decided to not run a red light. A long time ago I worked in a pub. Not a fancy place. The kind of place where your uniform is a green golf shirt and you have a change belt around your waist. A lot of pitchers of beer and sticky floors, etc. Anyway, I had already quit. It was a great place to work. I was just moving for school, and had done my last shift but picked one up for a friend. A group of people around my age but a couple years younger, which is a thing when you're in your early/mid-20s, came in. They seemed to be slumming it and there was one girl who was obviously quite well off and demanding the entire attention of the group the entire time. She kept snapping her fingers to get my attention and being generally obnoxious. Acting like an obnoxious high roller who was racking up a 5-figure bill, which was pretty ludicrous when the most expensive item on the menu was a burger that, if you finished the whole thing, was free. She made a couple unreasonable demands and was generally rude and dehumanizing to me. Her friends seemed embarrassed. They were finally wrapping up and paying their bill and she pushes a tip across the table at me and I pushed it back at her and said, in front of the whole table, "I don't want your money." She got very flustered and pushed the money back and said, "It's my tip. You have to take it." And I said, "No. I don't. But I have a tip for you. Don't be rude to someone who is going to be alone with your lunch." And then I added a cheery, "Enjoy your day." And left. The beautiful thing is, I didn't do anything to her food, nor would I ever have, but she doesn't know that. To this day she will be wondering what I did to the food she ate. I really hope she learned a lesson. Hard to say. I'm a manager for a big chain and honestly, I don't know if I'll go back. I've been fed up with the late nights, weekends and holidays since I was promoted. I really don't want to go back to that life. I also am worried about corporate making us do some ridiculous policies we just aren't qualified for. Rumors about temperature checks, not letting people in who have a cough, etc. I hate the guests. I'm fed up with their stupid questions and bogus complaints. The only problem is the theater is my only work experience and I don't have a college degree, so I have literally nothing to fall back on, which sucks. Do you think you'll go back? Managers, supervisors, crew? Why or why not? Hope you're all staying safe out there. Bartender at a local pizza joint. My buddy came in after a long day dealing with his 2 sick little girls. He tells me a story from today about the littlest. She's screaming for him from the bathroom. She states she's been waiting for 60 years for him. All she wanted was a cheese pizza from our place. Since they were sick, he went with something more appropriate for upset stomachs. But you can guarantee I got him a gift certificate for a cheese pizza for her when she's better. Nice to have good customers to even out the bad ones, lol. I worked in housekeeping in a hotel for months up until this past week. I'm now 35 weeks pregnant. I was scheduled to work 5+ days a week, with 20+ rooms to myself. I came into work recently, because I was on the schedule, and I could barely walk. I couldn't bend my back and my ankles were hugely swollen. I had been in L&D the night before to stop contractions. We didn't have many rooms, but 5 housekeepers in-house. Everyone was almost begging my manager to send me home, as we had too many housekeepers for the amount of rooms. Now, I'm huge at this point in pregnancy. I can't bend too far forward in general. My manager and I, discussed a couple weeks ago that she didn't want me cleaning bathtubs, so I was to have another housekeeper come clean my bathtubs. No biggie, I was fine with that. Well, the day before I quit I had went to find another HK to help with a bathtub. Said manager stopped us in the hall and asked what we were doing socializing on the clock. We explained that she was going to clean a bathtub for me and would go right back to her rooms. She yelled at me and said that if I can't do my job, I need to quit so that she can hire someone who's willing to work. I explained that it wasn't that I wasn't willing to work, rather that's one small task that I myself struggle with accomplishing. She didn't care. She continued yelling at me. Now, I've always hated being yelled at, so I spent the rest of my shift crying while cleaning my rooms. I got home from work, still crying. My boyfriend became extremely upset as I told him what had happened. We decided that it's in the best interest of our child that I just be done, as it's a lot of emotional trouble as well as physical. So I gave my manager her wish, and I went in and handed in my scrubs and quit. She seemed sympathetic, said she understood, was sad to see me go, and for me to come talk to her after I was released from maternity leave. Fast forward to today, another HK at said hotel was talking to this manager, while recording the conversation to send to me. She asked if I would be back after baby. The manager told her that I was lazy and a crybaby so she would never consider hiring me back. I'm glad I quit. I feel like I dodged a bullet. I'm not sure that I'll ever be able to convince myself to work in housekeeping again. This is a story when we were in 6th grade. At the end of the hallway there were 2 glass doors, around 10 meters from each other. In that room there was only one ladder, to go to the roof, but the roof hatch was obviously locked. The end door was also always locked. You could access the parking lot from there, but nobody used that way. The other door, from the hallway side, was open, but there was no reason to go in there, because basically there wasn't anything there. Now the class comedy kid went in there in recess and stood up on the ladder with one leg in one hand. With his other hand he started to scratch his armpit and make loud monkey sounds imitating that he is a monkey. Most of the kids on the hallway didn't care. Around 10 kids were enjoying the comedy through the glass door. There comes the always angry PE teacher in the hallway who is everybody afraid of. He notices the comedy and starts yelling. "Are you a monkey? Are you monkey? Monkeys belong in cages." And he took out a key from his pocket, closed the other end of that hallway end, and left. Every kid on the hallway, around 60, were laughing their asses off that he is locked in there. He was closed in there for 10 minutes. He was so ashamed he just sat down on the floor and stared to the ground. Maybe it doesn't sound as funny, but I am laughing in tears while writing this down. Sometimes I talk to this kid, this has been 20 years ago, and he likes this story. Discovery, Chesterfield County, VA. On August 7, 1986, workers unloading trash from the School Street transfer station in Richmond at a Chesterfield landfill noticed what appeared to be human remains in a dumpster. She was partially dismembered. The victim's torso and left leg were located at the landfill, but the missing parts of her body were apparently not found. Due to the state of remains of Jane Doe, fingerprinting and dental records are not available although DNA samples have been submitted for testing. For 34 years she has remained unidentified. The perpetrator of this horrible crime has never been brought to justice. Her death was determined to be a homicide, and she had been dead anywhere from days to months. Her body may have been stored in a sealed container to slow decomposition. Description: Jane Doe was a white female aged 15 to 35. Her weight was estimated to be around 105 to 120 pounds, and her height was estimated to be around 5 feet 0 inches to 5 feet 5 inches. Doe Network said that she had light brown hair with long blonde highlights. DNA phenotyping was done on Jane Doe and she may have brown or hazel eyes, a light complexion and freckles. Jane Doe had a post-vaginal hysterectomy and a bone island anomaly in right iliac, hip/pelvic, bone. She wore an approximate 7-ah shoe. Jane Doe was found with a dark rubber-like ankle bracelet/band on left ankle. I don't know how they would have determined she had highlights if only her torso and leg were found. Jane Doe possibly had ties to Richmond, Charlottesville, Buena Vista, Lynchburg, and Baltimore. If you have any information about Chesterfield Jane Doe, please contact Virginia Police. Doe Network page. I am 14. I am a certified referee in my state. I know the rules as I've played by them my whole life along with taking the officiating classes. At our park district, no headers for ages below 11. But in U12, it is up to the referee's discretion. So if it's a small tap it's okay. That is exactly what happens. So the coach behind me screams at the top of his lungs there are no headers in U12 5 to 16 times. I ignore him. Though I could eject him. It was last game of the season and I didn't care. After a bit of yelling, he says fine, go duck yourself then which I turn and tell at him for saying in front of U11 kids. I wish I sent him away or ended the match. Sadly I didn't do much and my partner is a longtime referee, officiated my matches as I grew up, and he is deaf. So he has no idea what happened. The person who runs Park District in my area has been informed and is taking action. To start, I'm not sure if this belongs here, as the weird experience mostly pertains to my boyfriend at the time, but I was also present. If it belongs somewhere else, please let me know and I will post it where it belongs. Okay, so this is a fairly short story and it's a fairly short encounter, but I thought it was worth sharing anyway. Also, this happened a while ago, so I will try to tell the story as accurately as possible. It was nighttime, probably around 11 or 12. My ex, we will call him Derek, was driving me home and we were almost there, but it had been a long drive and he needed to use the restroom. So, he pulled into the last rest stop available, while I waited in the car. Not too long after he disappeared inside, I noticed a man walking around from the back of the building and inside. At first I thought it was him, but I soon noticed that he was taller and wearing a different outfit. I also found it strange that there were no other vehicles in sight. I'm a fairly paranoid person, so naturally many thoughts began to run through my head. I suddenly began to feel extremely uncomfortable and on edge. But like I said before, I'm a very paranoid person and figured maybe I was overthinking things. I did keep my eyes glued to the entrance, though, hoping my ex would come out before the creepy guy did. Fortunately he does after a few minutes and gets in the car and takes off without saying a word. Nothing seems wrong, so I don't bother mentioning anything about the man I had seen. After a few minutes pass, though, he finally speaks up and tells me that the weirdest things just happened to him. I immediately think back to the guy I had seen. I asked him if it had to do with the guy I saw going around the building. Sure enough it was. The man followed him in and walked very close behind him. Derek went into a stall and turned to close the door, only to find the man standing there smiling at him. He quickly closed the door and waited, reaching for the knife in his pocket. The man stood there for a few minutes and even smiled at Derek through the crack in the door, but then left. I didn't see him come back out. I couldn't help but wonder what would have happened if he had noticed me in the car or if Derek hadn't have come back out. So, to the creepy middle-aged dude who tried following my ex-boyfriend into the stall in the rest stop bathroom. Let's not meet. A few years ago I was rooming with a guy. We hit it off pretty well, and had a lot of fun together. Now, he loved to play practical jokes on people he was fond of. I, being his roommate, became a prime target. We'd eat dinner together often and discuss things, like roommates usually do. At some point, though, he decided it would be funny to put sprinkles in my food. It didn't matter what. A plate of spaghetti I turned my back on for 2 minutes? Sprinkles. Grilled chicken? Sprinkles. While I was watching. I'm typically a pretty passive person. If you want to do things and it doesn't bother me over much, it's whatever. The sprinkles didn't do me any harm, and weren't the kind that tasted like anything, so I let it slide. Then one day we got one of those salad kits. Having little else to do that night, I started prepping the salad before asking if he wanted some. He agreed, and I started making the salad. Now, I had no plans to do this. This was literally an impulse. I looked over at the jar of sprinkles on the counter, smiled, and dumped a good measure of them on top of his portion of the salad. I then placed my unsprinkled portion on the table in front of my place, and then his heavily sprinkled portion in front of him. He took one look and burst out laughing. He couldn't stop for a few minutes, and even went as far to take a picture if it. So, that's my story. No overly dramatic Karens or snide remarks on front of important people. Just some sprinkles on a dinner plate. Pure and simple. TLDR, you get sprinkles, you get sprinkles. Everyone gets sprinkles. One night at the gas station I was working at, some guy with a U-Haul truck pulls in and asks for 15 in gas and goes outside to pump the gas. The gas doesn't pump, so he comes back in and asks why it's not working, and the prepay was still on there when he took it off the hook. Then he accuses me of stealing his money and demands I take 15 out of the register and threatens to call the cops. I tell him to try again and still doesn't pump any gas. Then comes back in and starts yelling and stomping and does call the cops, and while he was outside calling the cops he threw bags of dog shit and trash on my car and kicked a dent in the back fender, which I didn't notice until after I got off work later that night. Turns out his card was maxed out. I hope I run that son of an idiot again one of these days. Obligatory. This was last week. This isn't even half as bad as a lot of other posts on here, but it was embarrassing to me nonetheless. I've been a cart pusher at my local Walmart for the last couple months due to losing my other job because of COVID. Anyway, now to the actual story. I was pushing carts and walk up to a cart corral and it had a van right beside it. As I get close, I see two huge dogs put their heads out the window and start barking at me. Being a dog lover, I got excited and started walking in what some might call baby talk to the dogs, saying, "You are such good dogs. Look at you guarding your van. Such good guard dogs, also scary. So adorable," and more similar things. As I'm admiring these two beautiful huge dogs and talking to them in baby talk, I hear the van unlock, and a large guy walks up and looks at me and says, "Don't you have a job to do? You are one odd man. Don't you think you're too old to act like this?" And I quickly put my head down, trying to hide my laughter and get back to work. DL doctor got judged for talking to dogs in van, while on the clock. My employer was planning on a soft opening and bringing back a smaller portion of the staff. I figured I wasn't one of the employees to be brought back for the first phase after not hearing from them. I eventually got a message asking me to come back, which I made sure I'd still have a job if I declined. I let them know I'd be available when they needed me and declined due to the fact they couldn't guarantee me full time. Next day I'm told that I am coming back and being put down as available for 2 shifts a week. WTF? Not me, but witnessed my bar manager go through this. Customer: "Excuse me, I've been waiting ages and you served everyone except me." Bar manager: "I'm sorry love, what do you want?" C: "I'm not your love." Stares. BM: "I'm sorry, can I get you anything?" C: "I think it's awful how you ignore customers who have been waiting for so long." BM: "I didn't realize you had been waiting so long, what can I get you?" C: "Well, I think this is awful, 5 people must have come after me and been served." BM: "I apologize again, I'll get you your drinks now, what would you like?" C: "For free?" BM: "Sorry, I can't do them for free." C: "Why not? I've had to wait for so long, it's the least you can do." BM: "I don't think it works like that, do you want any drinks or not?" C: "Of course I do, why do you think I was waiting at the bar? But I don't think I should have to pay." BM: "You can either buy a drink or stand away from the bar, I'm afraid, that's all we can offer." C: "Fine. But I don't want you to serve me." BM: "Why not?" C: "Because you're incompetent, you don't know what you're doing." BM: "Well, everyone else here didn't serve you fast enough either, what difference does it make who pours your drinks?" C: "Well, I've just said, anyone but you. Now get somebody else." BM: "Well, the other staff are busy mixing drinks, so you'll have to wait if you want them." C: "Are you kidding? Flip you." BM: "Flip me? I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Commence ranting and shouting, followed by the bouncer escorting her out. Before I start, this isn't a pity me story, I'm fine. I want to share this because it was ridiculous. I'd met this guy, let's call him DG for delusional guy. I was 16 at the time, he seemed alright, and back then I didn't see the red flags as red flags. So naturally, when he started opening up to me about his abusive ex-girlfriends and how he was such a nice guy and they took advantage of it, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Boy, was I wrong. Fast forward to a year later, DG asks me out and I say yes. Over the course of 2 years, he started creating problems where there weren't any, all the time. He was always the poor victim, I was always wrong. Eventually it got to a point where he'd get mad for anything that didn't involve paying attention to him exclusively. Including sleeping. Always twisting it to make it look like it was the worst crime ever committed. He'd compare me a lot with his ex, let's call her Girl. Girl had supposedly tried to contact him again, but he didn't want anything to do with her because she was toxic and she cheated on him. Here's an example of him getting mad at me for problems he created himself. Once he sent me a random nude and I didn't want to anger him, so I reacted positively. And it became all about how he was a nice guy and I was treating him like a sex object. Few weeks later he sent me another nude, and since I didn't want to make him feel like a sex object, I stayed neutral about it. And of course I was still a monster because I was making him feel unattractive and insecure. There was just no winning with him. I found a job in a fast food restaurant a couple years ago and I broke up with him shortly after, since I was seeing normal humans again, and of course I could suddenly see the entire relationship was far from normal. Not only that, but I found out Girl hadn't cheated on DG. He had cheated on her. She dumped him and he tried to get her back throughout our entire relationship. So much for not wanting to do anything with her, and she's trying so hard to contact me. He was also actively cheating on me with another girl. After I dumped him, he begged me to give him a chance, but I said no. So he sent me a million texts whining about how he was such a nice guy again and he still cared even after how I treated him and I was a piece of shoot. I just blocked him and refused to see him, so he started sending his friends. He is still in complete denial, and by now I'm probably another evil toxic ex who broke his heart in his feel-bad stories for his next girl.